Well, this is the 1st of September, so meteorologically it's the first day of autumn, and there's no doubt the weather's telling me. I mean, it's going to be a lovely day, I think, but I've turned up this morning and I've got my old fleece out my van and I've got the lamp on. I don't know what that was. Yeah, so I've even had a thought to myself to flash up the Frontier stove, but it really isn't quite that cold. But there is a nip in the air, so the warmth I get from this little gas cooker will be most appreciated. And before I do anything, I'm having a cup of tea, and I'm so early I'm going to sit down and watch the sunrise. But I've just been down the plot and the shed looks really homely with the lamp on and the net curtains up, courtesy of Nikki. Thank you, Nikki. So yeah, my daughter and my wife are off to Cribbs Causeway shopping, one of those big shopping centres that is my idea of hell on earth, as is this theirs. So I've been given a day leave pass to come up here, as long as I take home enough produce for tea, which is easily done. So, cup of tea, watch the sunrise, and then I get a bit of light on the plot, and I've got a big job on today, and that is emptying one of the compost heaps. The one I'm using is just full to overflowing now, and whilst every couple of days I come back and it's dropped down a bit, as compost do, it still needs to be turned, and I've got one that's got some lovely looking compost maturing in it, so I'm going to empty that, and luckily it's next door to it, put that on one of the beds ready for as I empty beds, and then I'll turn it into the other one, and that does a number of things. It gets rid of any pests that might be living in it, any rodents or the such like, and it takes the stuff on the top and it turns it, puts it down the bottom, and in the process allows in air to fuel the process of decomposition. And then I'm hoping at the very bottom of the pile there'll be some usable compost as well. So that's a very physical job. It's a big old pile. I shall take my time, but it's got to be done, and I'm going to do it today. And then I've got to weed the raspberry bed. I've really neglected that. We're getting a wonderful crop of raspberries this year, really tasty. We're freezing quite a few because we can't eat them so quick. And of course, they don't last more than a day or two before they just turn to mush. So we're freezing a lot. But the bed's been neglected and I'm stamping through weeds as I'm picking. So, and of course some of the canes inevitably I'm stepping on because I haven't maintained the rows as you should. So that's got to be done today, and then we'll see from there. Lots of harvesting. I haven't picked any runner beans or French beans for about a week, so there'll be a lot of them to pick. So yeah, as with all these things on the allotment, I never really know what I'm going to do till I get up here. There we go. That didn't take long. Ah, music to my ears. And that'll do nicely. Well, your good health and happiness. I can hear a little bit of road traffic. What is it? What time is it? Oh, dead on 6 o'clock. I can hear a little bit of road, tiny little bit of road traffic, but the predominant sound as I sit here in peace and quiet is bird song. Before I show you the compost job, that's my Atlantic giant. I've cut all others off, and any other leading shoots that come out, I cut them off. So all the effort's going into that one, and it's doing very well. Let's go and have a look at Barry's. Now before we walk down Barry's plot, it's worth reminding ourselves this is their first growing year on this plot. And they took it over at the beginning of the season. So this is quite an achievement for Barry and Margaret. It's a really impressive plot. It's definitely one of the smartest here, but of course, you know, he's retired, but that said, it's still immaculate. Isn't it amazing how the leaves have all died back on the pumpkins? I mean, mine are on that path, but not as advanced as Barry's. It's immaculate. Lovely to see. And as I walk down, the birds are flying out from everywhere. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. There's nothing like beautifully turned soil, clean of weeds. Look at this. It's like you see in a book. But we're getting close to ground zero. Ah, and I see it. Here we are. So there's my hand for scale. So he's got a good sized football there now, but he's not keeping all his eggs in that basket, because over there I spy another one. But he's got two plants, so that does make a difference. The size of that butternut. Blimey, it's bigger than his Atlantic giant. In fact, that one's even bigger. It is absolutely immaculate. In fact, I'm going to stick my neck out here and say it's the neatest allotment I've ever been on. Look at those slabs. That's cleaner than the ones that I've got at home. Yes, let me spin you around slowly. That really is quite something. It is immaculate. I have not yet seen a weed. Not a one. Ah, hang on. Look. There's a little bit of couch grass that's coming out from the path. Oh dear Barry, you let yourself down. It's a thing of beauty. Apart from that couch grass. Yeah, absolutely remarkable. That is how an allotment should be, folks. Now, Bridget has 3 plots over diagonally opposite me on the site. But as well as the 3 plots, in the summer this year, or earlier in the year, she gained this little piece of land here, and she decided to grow tomatoes on it. And the best way I can describe it is like a tomato orchard, if there was such a thing. And it's absolutely abundant with tomatoes. Quite what she does with all these, I'll have to ask her. But there's thousands, well no, there's hundreds of tomatoes. And there's only the 2 of them. What do they do with them all? I'll find out and I'll let you know. Not to be outdone, I too have a tomato orchard, but it's a little more modest, consisting of 6 plants with half a dozen tomatoes ready for picking, and it looks like they've split. But hey ho, it's all welcome. And over here is my sweet potato. And it's sending off runners, and I believe they send down shoots, not unlike a strawberry plant. Now I'd guess that in a more appropriate climate they too would then start to grow tubers. I don't know, but and I really don't know if I'm going to have any tubers under there, but I've really enjoyed watching it from its early stages where it seemed very, very unwell and didn't move for a month. But slowly, we did have a reasonably hot spell in July, and it's done well. So we'll see what happens when I dig it out, I don't know, end of this month, near October. Another job I hope to do today, if I get the time, is I'm going to take all the tops off of these potatoes. I probably won't dig them out because we've got buckets of them at home. I'll leave them in the ground, which of course has its inherent risks of them all being destroyed. But yeah, I'm going to take the tops off today, take all the weeds out and try and tidy that bed up a little bit. That's the plan. Well, the main task this morning is this compost heap is about half full of well rotted allotment compost that I've made. It was last turned, it says there, on the 1st of June. So the plan is to empty this and put it on an empty bed over there using the wheelbarrow. Once that's empty, this heap here, which was up here and has dropped like that in 2 days, all of that is going into what will then be this empty compost bay. And of course, as I said earlier, the process of turning it promotes the decomposition. And the compost heaps really should be turned, maybe once a month. I don't do that. It's a lot of effort, and I just don't do it. But that would be the ideal. So let's get on and get it done. I do like my labelling system because there's no way I'd remember that. Compost heap last turned on the 1st of June. So if we come in here, that is lovely, slightly warm, which is a bit worrying, slightly warm, friable, I think that's the word, compost. And I can see all the little insects and worms and things in it. Oh, you've got to be pleased with that. Black gold. Right, let's get that there black gold on that there empty allotment bed. The sun is on its way up. What a beautiful place to be. Well, I don't want to overplay my card, but that is the most beautiful allotment compost I've ever made. I'm I'm almost proud of it. Right, let's get it on the bed. Well, I suppose I'm at the halfway point. That's the pile on that bed to be distributed once I've got other empty beds. It's not as much as I thought it would be, but that's always the case with compost, I think. And that's, it's not empty, but the stuff in the bottom is more soil than compost, so I'm going to spread that about a bit. And then all I've got to do now is put that heap into the empty bay. But coming around here, where I dug up my main crop potatoes, sorry about whatever's on the lens, I've also managed to get some on there, and I'll rake that in and top dress that. Right, I'm puffing like the old man I am, so I'm going to go and have a cup of tea and a sit down. Right, well, I changed my plans slightly, and as we used to say in the army, no plan survives contact with the enemy. So, rather than heap it up, I forgot I had another empty bed, so I've redistributed. So, everything that came out of that compost heap is now distributed and top dressed on the old potato bed, this empty bed, and there's one over there. And you can see, hopefully you can see, it's a really good, healthy, good couple of inches deep. It's the 1st of September, so that's got the autumn, the winter to sort of leach into the ground. I am aware that when you have beds like this open all winter, people say that the nutrients that you're putting onto the ground can leach into the soil and be washed away over the winter with nothing gained. Well, I can't help that. I don't have enough black plastic to cover it. I'm not sure I'd really want to. It's quite ugly, and you know, nature doesn't cover its ground in black plastic, and it provides everything that the crops need. So you know, not going to worry about it. It's top dressed with really good quality homemade allotment compost. It's a good couple of inches thick, and now I'm going to leave the worms and the bugs and everything else to do its job and break it down. Yeah, job done. Just got to tip everything from the old compost heap now into the empty one. And of course, last but not least, not forgetting to label it. So it says top dressed allotment compost, the 1st of September 2019, and I'll remember that in the weeks and months to come, that one's been done. Even when it disappears into the soil, I'll know that bed's ready for the spring. I don't know if you can see, it's only been on here a few days. Already it's heating up, and the heat's rising as I dig into it. There's a lovely, rich, earthy smell coming off this as I whoever invented the modern gymnasium had never worked an allotment. Oh. I'm glad I'm on my own up here because there's a lot of grunting and groaning going on. It's the 1st of September today, as I mentioned, and it's getting to that part of the growing season where not only do you look forward and think about maybe anything you might want to grow in the winter, but you look back and see what went right and what went wrong, and in that allotment optimistic way you think what you do differently and what you'll do next year. And one of the sort of things I'm thinking is runner beans. Runner beans are an absolute stalwart of the allotment. Everybody grows them, even my neighbour doesn't grow them, but I was going to say even the people who don't really bother that much grow runner beans, and generally they do. It's a fairly easy crop to grow, and everybody eats the runner beans and so on, but I find runner beans, as tasty as they are, a real drag to prepare, whereas the French bean, which I prefer to eat, is so much easier. So the only downside I can see of growing French beans as opposed to runner beans is the aesthetics on the site. Runner beans, in my experience, are a really attractive plant on the allotment. Indeed, they were grown originally as an ornamental climber. It was only much later when people realised you could eat the seeds. So that aside, because my French beans, which are cobra, are really quite unattractive. I don't know whether they've got some kind of disease on them this year. The bit we eat is lovely, no problem at all. But to look at, it's very unattractive. But that said, I'm not growing these crops for their aesthetics, whilst that is, you know, an enjoyable part of it. So next year I've decided I'm going to grow predominantly French beans, and I will only grow runner beans on the 2 arches. That will still give us a plentiful crop, but I'm going to concentrate on the French bean, and I'm going to try something different to cobra and see if I can't find something that's a little more pleasing to the eye. If anybody knows of a really good French climbing bean, please let me know in the comments, because you know that's what I should be looking for next year. And I will also, because I have 3 frames this year, I've got 2 frames with French beans on and 1 with runner bean. Next year I'm going to use 3 climate frames, all with French beans on. So I'm quite happy to have a different French bean variety on each frame, and I'm going to grow them 1 month apart. This year they've all come at once on the 2 frames. I've got that wrong again. They've all come and they've all gone together. So next year I'm going to start some off sort of late March, depending on the weather, and then another frame a month later, and then the 3rd frame the month after that. And I'll see if I can't get a better, more spaced out and more reliable crop throughout the summer. So that's one of the major lessons I've learned this year, or major decisions I've decided on. But yeah, I'd be really interested if anyone knows a decent French climbing bean. The cobra's been okay and it's tasty, but towards the end of the season they start to curl and they get blemishes on them. And so I've been very happy with them, but I think I can do better with a different bean. So yeah. Cup of tea. What a beautiful day. What a beautiful day. First day of autumn, and it's an absolute cracker. Actually, this shed's been here 2 weeks, and we've had 1 day of rain, and it wasn't very heavy, so I haven't really seen the guttering work yet. It's always the way, isn't it? If you want to stop the rain, buy a nice coat. If you don't want it to rain on an allotment, put gutters on your shed. Right, Terry's getting rid of his rhubarb, so I'm having it, and it's going in this potato bed. We've chopped the leaves off, dug them out, I'll give it a drink, and it's on its own. This is Terry coming to dump his rubbish on my compost heaps.
In there.
In there.
As it is.
Chuck it in.
Oi.
That's it. It's all goodness.
Oh, I can smell like fertiliser manure. Is that?
That's where I've dug that out earlier today.
Really?
Yeah. Well, that wasn't expected. 3 mature plants. Brand new rhubarb plants. We love our rhubarb. Terry doesn't eat it, so that's a perfect deal. One of them's been split, so I just need to rake it and tidy it up. And let's hope that they get some new growth before winter sets in. Oh yeah. God bless you.
Oh, there's nothing
Last night's tea. Yeah. Tomatoes, spinach, pasta. Cold.
Yeah, I got last night's tea.
Well, I lost count of how many brews I've had today, but it's been a beautiful day. There's been a few people up here. Terry's been up here most of the day, so I have to admit we've probably had about 2 hours worth of tea breaks sat on the seat with the umbrella up out there, and that was really nice. It's not always about the veg and the weeding. Sometimes it's just nice to sit down with somebody you get on with and you share a common hobby with or interest, and passing the time of day. So it's been a really lovely day. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. Terry doesn't eat rhubarb, and he had a little bit of rhubarb. In fact, he get quite a lot of rhubarb. So he offered it to me, and I've taken it because where the potatoes were growing is extra land. So we like rhubarb. So we've cut it all off. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but you've got to cut it off to get at the crown and the roots. So I've given it a really good drink. We've put it in down there, and we'll see what happens. And hopefully, in a year's time or just less, we'll be picking lots of rhubarb. So that was a bonus today. That was unplanned, but I've done all the weeding I need to. The plot is now looking pretty good. I'm pleased with how it's looking. Yeah, so I've weeded all around the raspberries. I've picked a little bit of crops harvest today to go back and have our tea. I've got to see if we've got some carrots there that are big enough. Done a bit of watering because there's no rain in the forecast still, not for the next 2 weeks. What else have I done? Yeah, funny isn't it? You spend all day up here. It's now 3:15 and I've been here since 5:30. And I'm hard pushed to point what I've done. I've tied in I've cut off some old raspberry canes and blackberry canes and tied in the new ones for next year. I've cut the grass, and I cut the communal grass as well. Terry did some trimming around the communal areas, so we've tidied that up a bit. And yeah, I've just really pottered. So I've had a great day, thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not sure what kind of video it'll make, but whatever I've got, I hope you enjoyed it. And thanks to all those that are subscribing. It's lovely to see that number steadily going up. And I won't be around next weekend. I'm working next weekend. I think I'm working next weekend. That can always change, of course. But so I'll make a video sometime in the near future, but not quite sure when. So until then, look after yourselves. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye now.